We are sustaining new behaviors that are based more on our passions instead of logic or tradition and becoming more confident in them. Not only that, but they are also becoming easier and are actually working to change our lives for the better. However, we are still struggling to find a natural rhythm with these behaviors that feels comfortable and integrate relationships into them. In addition, we may get unexpected ideas we want to act on immediately, further complicating the situation. At this full moon in Taurus, we may realize that we need to hold off on acting on these new ideas first so that we can better adapt to our situation and fit relationships into the picture. Hi, I'm your astrologer, Brittany of Ethereal Astrology, helping you to see the larger story of your life. Today, you're watching your Astrology Horoscope for the collective for the full moon in the sign of Taurus, which occurs on Wednesday, November 5th, 2025 at 8:19 a.m. Eastern Time or 5:19 a.m. Pacific Time, depending, of course, on which part of the world or country and world that it is that you live in. Now, before I go ahead and hop into this horoscope, I do have very exciting news. And that exciting news is that my first astrology course is finally now available. It's been a labor of love. I've been working on it for years. It's probably almost been like really since I started my business, maybe 10 years, but really the past 5 years. It's been a big thing. I've been working on it 4 years and it's finally ready. And my first astrology course is going to teach you how to read an astrological chart more easily, more quickly, with more depth and detail, and in a way that's unique to you. And I'm going to teach you those things using my signature framework that I have not found anywhere else, that I've developed by just analyzing my own process and from my own experience. And my own framework that I'm going to teach you how to do that is one where we use storytelling techniques found in narrative literature and journalism in order to put the pieces together of a chart, which is what I've experienced. And I was a journalist for 10 years before doing astrology. And we're going to talk about all those things: characters, plot, narrative arcs, character arc, to really help you kind of put a chart together in a very good way. I want to note that even though, right, anyone can take this course, it is probably best for those of you who already know the basics of astrology, like the meanings of the signs, planets, aspects, and houses. You should probably have some basis on that. So it's probably best for people who already know some about the basics but still can't read a chart. Might also be good too for those of you who can read a chart but are just looking for a little bit of a different perspective or a different take on how to get there. It's also very good too for creatives. If you're a writer, of course, because we're talking about storytelling, or an artist or a musician, this might also click more into place in your mind on how to read a chart than it will otherwise. It's a 7-module course with over 11 hours of video, and we've got 2 workbooks there. One to help you understand the course content and material, and the other to help you actually read a chart step by step. I think one of my favorite things about this course is that in it, I don't tell you specifically what planets to look at first or second or third specifically, because honestly, that constantly changes. Every horoscope is different. Every chart is different. That's constantly changing what I'm looking at first, second, or third. Instead, I tell you how to think about that and how to come up with those answers yourself, which I really think in the end is more valuable, right? Because if I just tell you what I used, which I don't really have anything specifically that I used, then you wouldn't learn yourself how to come up with something that's unique to you. That we're going to teach. So that is what I love about it. And don't let that make you think that there's not a lot of details in this course, because there is. Don't let that make you think that there's not a step-by-step process on how to read a chart, because I also give you that, a step-by-step process on how to kind of make your own interpretation to kind of bring everything together as well. So I have to say I'm super excited about this course because it's been a long time coming. It's been a labor of love. It's finally here. And I hope that you all really like it too and find something kind of unique and different and helps you just think about astrology in a different way that's more kind of fun, playful, and creative. So I hope you all enjoy this. You can go ahead and get it on my website, which I have up. I redesigned my website, etherealastrology.com. You can get it there on the homepage if you want to scroll down. And of course, you can read more about it as well. Yeah, 7 module course, 11 plus hours, and it'll be in your own course portal. You'll have to log into to see it. But there's that. And then once I'm done with this, finally, thought this day would never come, I'm going to start working on a basics of astrology course. So that one's next. The next course is going to be about the signs, the planets, the aspects, and the houses and what those mean. And I'm not sure when that will be available, but right now I'm thinking more like March or April of next year that I might have that. So you can also look out for that as well. But I hope you all enjoy that course and that it's something a little different. Now, let's go ahead and let's hop into the horoscope itself. And in order to do that, what I like to do first is to place on the chart what it is that we're going to be talking about in this video so that you can see it and follow along with me. So let me do that now. This video is for that full moon in Taurus. Because of that, I've adjusted the chart accordingly for that lunar event. I know that because I've got the moon here in Taurus, making an exact opposition over here to the sun in Scorpio. And when the moon opposes the sun, like it's doing here, that is considered a full moon, and it's a full moon in Taurus because that is the sign that the moon itself is in. Okay, now what is this about? What are, say, the general themes that might be coming up at this full moon? Let me talk about that. The first, I like to start with getting some common ground around what a full moon is. Full moons are halfway through the lunar cycle. Because of that, they're a lot about stepping into things that we have been working towards for quite some time, potentially since that last new moon. Not only is it about that, it's also too about bringing things to fulfillment, right? Full moon, fulfillment or completion, right? So that we can end those things and eventually move on to other stuff. Not only that, but because it is when the moon is the brightest in the sky as well, it can also bring insights, illuminations, where we start to see things more clearly that maybe we couldn't see before. And also too, because it is a function of an opposition, oppositions usually indicate decisions because it's hard to do two opposite things at once. So it usually brings some sort of decision that might need to be made as well. Okay, what is it that we are stepping into more fully or bringing to fulfillment and completing and getting illumination on and making decisions about? Well, that to me is going to be Taurus because that's the sign that the moon is in. Okay, what is Taurus about? Well, I'll give you a few things. Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac. Not only is it the second sign of the zodiac, it's a fixed sign. Okay, the fixed signs are all about sustaining something that was already started, which we'll get into in a minute, but I think was started, of course, in Aries season. So that's one of the things that we're trying to step into more fully at this full moon and get more clarity and insight and decisions around is something that we're sustaining or trying to stay fixed in, or something that we're continuing doing or have been doing for some time. Not only that, but another thing that I want to note is that Taurus is, because it's Venus ruled, it's a lot about confidence and self-worth as well, that I think we're trying to cultivate more of. And again, you can see it as separate, but I see a lot of things as related. So I think it's related to that thing we're sustaining. We're also trying to get more confident in that and believe more in ourself and our abilities in order to sustain that thing that it is that we need. Not only that, but Taurus as well has to do with our skills and our talents, the things that we kind of have at our disposal to like make things, occur in our lives. So not only are we trying to sustain, I think, something that we've really already started and get more confident in our abilities to do so, but we might also be trying to cultivate like more skills or more talents in order to make that happen. Not only that, but Taurus as well also has to do with our value systems, which are the things that we value or that are really important to us as well. So I think we're also trying to get more clarity on what our value systems are and what we do value, and adjust our values, especially as it pertains to something that we may be sustaining as well. Not only that, but another thing that I need to note is that Taurus is a lot about stability and security, being an earth sign. Earth signs tend to be about that in a lot of ways. So not only are we trying to sustain something that maybe we've already started and get more confident in it and cultivate more of a skill and talent and more of a value set around it, but I think too, we're also trying to become more stable and more secure with these things that we're doing or in our life and in our experience. Not only that, but another thing that I should note as well is that Taurus, being an earth sign, also tends to be more about like reality or things that can be seen more tangibly, like in the physical, the earth realm, in the physical realm as well. So not only are we trying to sustain, right, something that's previously started and get more confident in it and cultivate more of a skill and talent for it and adjust our value systems towards it. But I think as well, right, and feel more stable and secure with it. But I think we're also as well trying to see, especially because the full moon is when you start to see things, see it manifest more in reality or adjust more of our reality in some sort of way. Not only that, but another thing that I'll also note as well is that Taurus is Venus ruled. Venus is not about pushing and forcing things, that's Mars. Venus is more about taking things more easily and maybe a little bit more of like a slower pace per se, because fixed Earth, right? Earth is harder to move in, especially when it's fixed. Might be doing something in maybe like a slower pace, or if not a slower pace, then and just a pace that feels a little more easy as well. So I think we're also trying to get insights on how to do that and make some decisions around that as well. There too, which I think is going to be a significant thing that we're going to talk about at some point here in more detail. Okay, and I think that those are the main themes that stand out to me so far. Let me just repeat those before we move to some other parts of the video. What I think is kind of the general theme of this full moon in Taurus is that we're really trying to, like, don't want to say more fully sustain something that we previously started, and to get more confident in it and cultivate more of a talent for it or a skill for it, and adjust our value systems toward it and feel more stable and secure with it and see it start to work in reality. And also too, maybe get some more clarity or illumination or make some decisions on what kind of pace maybe we need to sustain this thing in a way that feels a lot more easier or puts us more at ease in our situation. Okay, now what I like to do next in this video is to actually go backwards in time for a minute before we go forwards in time. And I like to go backwards in time to give you more of the context of how we got here, or of why these themes that I'm talking about are now coming up to be felt, lived through, and experienced. And I like to go back in time to do that because there's a full moon in Taurus every year. What really makes each full moon different from the next is a lot of the other alignments that happened around it and that came before it. So I like to go in and talk about the context first, which I need to note is another thing I talk about in my recent course, right? That's a part of storytelling. You need to have some sort of context to know where you're going and a point of view. So it's a thing I talk about in my course, but we're going to do it here as well. And I'm going to go ahead and hop into that. This section can get kind of long, especially now that we're coming to the end of the astrological year. So if you're not interested in it, no worries. I have the timestamps down below for you. I always mean to put those in. So if they're not in a video, it's an accident, but I should have them in this video down below for you. Just go ahead, skip to whatever section you want in the video. It's totally fine. Choose your own adventure. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hop into the context to do it. I'm going to go back to an alignment that occurred the beginning of 2020, January to April of 2020, somewhere right around here. What we had happen then was Saturn, Pluto, the South Node, and Jupiter all come into a conjunction towards the middle to end degrees of Capricorn. This is a very rare alignment because Saturn and Pluto only come conjunct every 35 years, and not always with the South Node and Jupiter there, which makes it even more rare. Not only is it a rare alignment, it's also a challenging one, unfortunately, because Saturn and Pluto are both considered malefic planets. The South Node can also be a bit difficult as well, and Jupiter was in Capricorn, a sign it didn't like to be in. That was a little hard. So a very rare challenge that was going on at this time. What was that rare challenge in January to April of 2020? Well, I think what was happening at that time is that we began to feel Saturn stuck in our lives, especially on the South Node, and unable to move forward. And not only stuck in our lives and unable to move forward, but also to maybe dissatisfied or restricted with the overall direction of our life, because that's Capricorn, with the overall direction that our life had been going in. And I think that we were feeling stuck and restricted and unhappy with the overall direction of our life because either we didn't like really any of it that had happened in the past 35 years, because that's how long it takes for this to happen, or we liked a good bit of it, but we just simply had changed since then. And outgrown it, right? Our character arcs had changed. We had outgrown it. We're growing. And because of that, we were no longer satisfied with it. And we felt like the life that we had is too small in a certain way. And we were looking for something else. Not only was that going on in January to April of 2020, but I believe at that time we also started to feel as well like we needed to make big Jupiter, sweeping change, Pluto, permanent change to end. the South Node to end these old things about our life that we did not like, that had been going on for many years, in order to let that go and ultimately, whatever that would be, step into a new, different, and better experience of life based on different things after this point. Okay, so I think that's what was going on there. Another thing I want to note too about what was going on in January to April of 2020, I think another reason, maybe I should have mentioned this, why we did not like the life that we had, right? Either because we didn't like it at all, or because we had simply outgrown it. But another reason why is because the old life that we had, January to April of 2020, that had been for many decades prior to that, about 35 years, was one that was based more on Capricorn tradition, based more on Capricorn responsibility, based more on Capricorn status and success, based more on Capricorn, the public eye, how we appeared to be to other people, that was going on, and responsibility, doing more of the serious, responsible thing that other people could admire as well, instead of maybe what we truly felt within ourselves. Okay, so that was happening there, that we were dissatisfied and we started taking the steps to make the endings to get out of those things that we didn't like. Okay, and if I can be honest, I think that took a long time to do that, longer than we would have liked in various ways. It wasn't really until earlier this year that I think things started to change. So now I'm going to fast forward to that. I'm going to fast forward to April of 2025. The reason why I want to fast forward to the beginning of this year is because we had a new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Aries around that time. Not only did we have a new moon solar eclipse in Aries around that time, but also too because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, okay, as well, which makes it the beginning of the astrological new year, as well as a bunch of other things too, which sets the tone for the entire year as well. So whatever happens in Aries season sets the tone for the entire 12 months until the sun enters Aries the next year. Okay, so that's a good starting point here. What do I think was happening then in April of 2025? Well, new moons are about new beginnings. Solar eclipses superpower that. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Not only does that mean it starts a new astrological year, it means it starts a totally new cycle, a totally new experience of life that's different, that we haven't experienced before, that's supposed to be more passionate, that we're supposed to be more excited about. So in April of this year, we finally felt as though like we had ended and escaped from enough things over the course of the past 5 years that we did not like, that we were finally able, more free now, to create a new, different, and better experience after this point that we'd been trying to get to for a while. Not only that, but I also need to note another thing about this new moon solar eclipse in Aries as well in April of this year. Aries is a Mars ruled sign. It's a lot about action. It's a lot about doing things. And with it being the first sign of the zodiac, it's about doing things as well in new ways, new behaviors that we might have, right? Because how do we get into a new, different, and better experience of life? It doesn't just happen magically on its own, as much as we would like it to. It happens because of the way we act, because of our behaviors, because things we're doing, okay? And because we're doing things differently. Because if you want a new experience, you have to behave in different ways in order to get there. So it was also about us adopting new behaviors in order to get into the new experience. What were these new behaviors that we were adopting? Well, I think they were also a bit more Aries. What is Aries? Aries is a fire sign. It's passionate. It's instinctive. It's impulsive. It's not about responsibility. It's not about tradition. It's not about what we think we should do. It's not about trying to appear to be successful to people we don't even know. No, Aries is about following our passion, whatever lights us up in the moment, going for it. And kind of trusting more of our instincts and our impulses, which can be a bit of emotion, trusting more of our emotions when it comes to that that I think we were beginning to experiment with. Okay, that then leads me down to the next alignment that I want to mention. And the next alignments I'm going to mention, I need to note, are all going to be moon phases, the newer full moons, to kind of track throughout this year and how we've been evolving. And that next new moon happened about a month later in May of 2025, which you might want to take note of, because now we're getting the full moon in that sign, right? In May of 2025, we had a new moon in Taurus, right? The full moon's now here. They're connected. Okay, what was that new moon in Taurus about? Well, new moons are about new beginnings, new energy, fresh starts. Taurus is about sustaining something, being the second sign of the zodiac that we already started. And I think sustaining what we just talked about in that new moon solar eclipse in Aries, sustaining these new behaviors that are based more on passion and emotion and intuition and instinct and impulse, instead of responsibility, tradition, seriousness, and status and success and all of that. It was about us trying to sustain these things so that we could eventually get into a new experience of life, because the more we do these new behaviors, the more and more new experiences are going to come together. And it was about us trying to get more confident in those behaviors as well. Not only that, but Taurus as well, being fixed Earth, is a little bit of a slower sign. So we may have either had to go slow in order to kind of sustain this, to make sure we were doing it in the best way, or it might have just felt slow because we were doing less, because we were following our emotions and our impulses instead of doing what we should do because of the responsible thing. We were doing less. And sometimes when you do less, it just feels like life is slower because you're not doing as much. That was going on then. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention a month after that, the next new moon in Gemini, a sign over around June of this year. What was that all about? New moons are about new beginnings, new energy, fresh starts. Gemini is a mutable sign. It's about adapting to something, adjusting to something as well. Especially our mindset that was there. Not only that, but Gemini to me, it can also be a little bit more of a playful sign, being symbolized by two twin boys, not only adjusting our mindset and adapting to something, but being a little more flexible, a little more playful with it, where we weren't so strict about whether or not we were sustaining the thing, and we're kind of giving ourselves a little more room to breathe there as well, which I think that we were able to do. Then that leads me now to the next new moon, which happened about a month after that, July of this year, 2025, in the next sign over of Cancer. New moons are about new beginnings, new energy, fresh starts. Cancer is a lot about grounding something, being the lowest part of the chart, and also about our home and family, our roots. It's about getting more rooted in something, more grounded in something, it becoming a more permanent part of ourselves there, and more like ingrained within our emotions, being a water sign in who we are, and kind of nurturing ourselves through that. And with that new moon conjunct Jupiter in Cancer and its sign of exaltation, I think we were able to do that. We were able to get more grounded and more rooted in these different actions that are based more on passion, emotion, instinct instead of responsibility or tradition, and to help them become more a part of like our soul and who it is that we are. That then leads me now to the next lunation I want to mention, which was 2 weeks after that. I think also somewhere around July, and that was in the opposite sign, of course, of Capricorn, the full moon in Capricorn in July of this year. And what is that about? Well, full moons are all about stepping into things more fully that we've been working towards for quite some time. Capricorn is our sign more about practical reality. Not only that, it's also about the direction of our life, and it's also a sign that's more publicly seen, being at the top of the chart. So I think what happened at that full moon in July is that now that we had become more rooted in different behaviors that were based more on our passions instead of responsibility or tradition, it was about us trying to put more of those into action in reality, in the real world, to change the direction of our lives. And to start to see, maybe just a little bit, as a result of these actions, to start to see a little bit our physical reality change to be new and different. Not just our behaviors change, but those behaviors to work to get our physical external reality to start to change a little bit there too, towards a different and better experience of life we'd been working towards for a while. Okay, that then leads me now to the next new moon that I want to mention about 2 weeks after that, around August of this year. And at that time, we had a new moon in Leo. New moons are about new beginnings, new energy, fresh starts. Leo is a lot about courage. It's a lot about courage. It's a lot about risk-taking, being bold, kind of taking things to the next level, and believing more in our abilities to do something. And Mercury was actually retrograde right around that time, near that new moon as well, which is not really the best thing. So I think this was us starting to lack a little bit of that courage, be the cowardly lion, right? Lack a little bit of that courage, lack a little bit of that ability to make bold moves, especially when it comes to these new behaviors that we had just started to get more rooted in, that were based more on our passions instead of responsibility and tradition. I think it was us getting scared and kind of holding back from finishing the drill with whatever we did at that full moon in Capricorn, and kind of stagnating a little bit, and having some fearful emotions we needed to deal with. That was making us feel held back. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment I want to mention, which is 2 weeks after that, another full moon, also somewhere around August of this year in Aquarius. What was that all about? Full moons are all about stepping into things we've been working towards for quite some time. Aquarius is a lot about breaking free from things that say are keeping us stuck or detaching from things. And so I think that's what happened. I think we were breaking free, and I think we were breaking free from the fear and the lack of courage and detaching from the fearful emotions that we were having surrounding this new approach to life that we needed to adopt in these new, more passionate actions. That then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention, which happened about 2 weeks after that, which was a new moon in the sign of Virgo over here in September of this year, 2025. Okay, what was that about? New moons are about new beginnings. Virgo is a lot about our habits and our routines, things that we do on a daily basis, day in and day out. Not things we do occasionally when it feels good, things we do every day, day in and day out. Okay, and what I think was trying to happen in September of this year is that now that we'd overcome some fear around new actions of life that are based more on our passions, is that we were trying to go back to doing them again, kind of like we were doing in July at that full moon in Capricorn, to go back to doing these actions again that were based more on our passions and to do them in a more consistent, routine way, day in and day out. Even if it was uncomfortable, even if we were still a little scared, to do it more day in and more day out to get to where we needed to be. That then leads me now to the next alignment I want to mention. About 2 weeks after that, I think it was also in September, we had a full moon in the opposite sign of Pisces, which was a lunar eclipse, full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces in September. What was that all about? Well, full moons are all about stepping into things we've been working towards for a while. Eclipses superpower that, and Pisces is a lot about faith. There's a lot about faith and hope and trust. And I think in some ways taking a leap of faith that might have been important to us, and taking a leap of faith with what? With these new behaviors that we've been talking about the entire year, that we just did more in a habitual way, is us taking more of a leap of faith to do these behaviors that are based more on our passions instead of responsibility and instead of tradition, and to go more in on that, to go more in on that, to go more fully in on that, to see, if it could work to change our lives more, and to release the past and the old ways of being and doing things. There. Hey, that then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention, which was 2 weeks after that in October of this year, which I believe was also another new moon in the sign of Virgo. This time that was a solar eclipse that we had in Virgo in October, because we had 2 new moons in Virgo this year. What was that about? Well, new moons are about new beginnings. Eclipse is superpower that. And this was on the South Node. The South Node is a lot about letting things go that may be holding us back. And in Virgo, this is a lot about overthinking or overworking or stressing out about the details or being too hard on ourselves and our situation or being too perfectionistic and critical. It was about us realizing that we needed to let that go, that in order for us to fully take this leap of faith, to fully embrace these new behaviors that are more passionate instead of responsible and traditional, that we needed to let go of overthinking. We needed to let go of being too critical and hard on ourselves and worried and scared and fearful and overworking, performing. We realized that we needed to have still let go of a few more of those things that were still kind of in the way of us finishing this leap of faith in these new behaviors that it is that we needed, which was a little bit challenging, but I think that we did. That then leads me now to the next alignment. That was 2 weeks after that, a full moon over here, I think also around October, yes, in the sign of Aries. What is that about? Full moons are all about stepping into things we've been working towards for quite some time. What are we stepping into? Well, what the new moon was about in April there in that same sign of Aries, which began the astrological year. These new behaviors that are more passionate, that are more emotional, that are more instinctual, that are more impulsive, right? It's about us trying to more fully step into those and to more fully go all in, to carry those out all the way to the end, as far as far as these actions could take us. Not only that, but Aries too is the warrior, the sign of the warrior. It was also about us fighting anything in the way of us going all in on our emotions, on our passions as well, so that we could finally do it, which again, I think we were able to achieve. That then leads me to the next alignment that I want to mention, which just happened 2 weeks ago, also in October, the last video that I saw you all on of this year, which was that new moon in the sign of Libra. What is that all about? New moons are all about new beginnings, new energy, and fresh starts. And Libra is a lot about balance, trying to find balance with this different approach, right? Because we had just gone all in. We had just gone all in on a different way of life that is based more on our action, our passions and our impulses. It was us trying to find a sense of balance, or if not balance, or to recalibrate our sense of self to this new experience in a way that felt a little more calm, or a little more like easy to handle, so to speak. It was also as well about us, because Libra is about the harvest. About the harvest was also about us kind of preparing to see more things manifest in our lives, or change in our lives, be harvested in our lives as a result of these different behaviors that we had. And it was also about us starting to figure out relationships, and how relationships, because Libra is about relationships, fit into these new behaviors that we have. Because a lot of this year has been all about us and these new behaviors, and not so much about other people. So we were trying to figure that out there and how that works. Okay. That then leads me now to this full moon, of which this video is for, happening now in November over here in the sign of Taurus. What is that full moon in Taurus all about? Well, again, full moons are all about stepping into things we've been working towards for quite some time. Taurus is about sustaining the thing, and sustaining what? Sustaining these new behaviors, right, that we've been talking about for a long time, that are based more on our passions instead of responsibility and tradition. Not only is it about us stepping more fully into sustaining those, but also as well getting more confident in our abilities to do so, more secure in it, more stable in it, and us cultivating more of these new behaviors and the skills and talents and value systems that we need to support it. And it's also about us too, trying to become more okay with the different pace that it might require, and to have a little bit of an easier time of it, and to hopefully begin to see more things change in reality, Earth sign reality by Venus, to work more in our favor, and to get more to where we want to go to get our lives into this new, different, and better experience that we've been trying to get to since 2020. Okay. And that's it, because that's it. And that was a lot. I'm just going to repeat that really quickly before we move on. What I think is going on at this full moon in Taurus, the context of it all, is that we've been trying to get to a new, different, and better experience for quite some time. It's been hard, but as of earlier this year, we finally started to figure out how to do it. And we finally started to figure out how to do it by adopting new behaviors that are based more on our passions, our emotions, our instincts, and our impulses, instead of responsibility or tradition or seriousness or status and success. It's taken us a while to fully figure out some of these new behaviors and overcome some fears around these new behaviors and go all in on these new behaviors. But we've finally done it. We have finally gone all in on these new behaviors and are doing them to a more full extent that they need to be done. And because of that, at this full moon in Taurus, we're trying to just sustain it, sustain the going all in, sustain the more complete action in this different way, and to get more confident in it, and to adjust our value systems to it, and to see more things change in reality, and to enjoy the pace, whatever pace it is that it requires, and to be more at ease surrounding that. Okay, and that's it. Because that's it, what I'm going to do next is I'm now going to zoom in now to the full moon in Taurus itself, to talk more about the specifics, the specific alignments that the full moon is making, and also some of the specific alignments that are happening around it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. To do that, I'm going to place it on the chart so that we can see where it is together. Here it is. Here's the full moon in Taurus, making that opposition over to the sun in Scorpio that we're going to be discussing. Let me make that a little cleaner. Okay, there we are. All right. What is this full moon in Taurus about again? It's about us trying to sustain. What are we trying to sustain? If you listen to the context, some new behaviors that we got in April of this year, which are based more on our passions, our instincts, our impulses, instead of responsibility, tradition, seriousness, status, and success. That's what we're trying to do, and get more confident in those, especially after recently taking a big leap of faith to go all in on them, okay, and to see them manifest more in reality. And to be more at ease about the pace. Okay. That then leads me now to the first alignment that I want to talk about. And the first alignment that I want to talk about is going to be here is going to be the fact that this full moon is making a sextile over to the north node in Pisces, which you can see 16 degrees, and the south node over here in Virgo at 16 degrees. Okay, and I'm going to talk about them both at the same time because the north node and the south node oppose each other. So if a planet is making a sextile to one of them, it's automatically going to have to make a trine to the other. So we're going to look at both. And what I want to note about this is this to me is a very, very good alignment. This is a very good alignment because for one, it's a sextile. I always interpret sextiles in positive ways, especially to the north node, which is a lot about our purpose and destiny in this lifetime, or at this time in our lives. And with the sextile going on to the north node, it's protecting us from the harsher aspects of the south node. And the south node can sometimes be a bit more difficult because it's about things that are past their prime that are no longer useful for us at this time. So this to me is a very good thing that's going on. What is the good thing that's going on here? Well, again, back to that full moon in Taurus, right? That's about us sustaining things. Sustaining what? New actions, new behaviors that are based more on our passions that we recently took a big leap of faith to go all in on to the most far extent that we can possibly go right now, right? This is us trying to sustain these new behaviors that it is that we have and to get more confident in them and whatever pace it is that they require, right? And to, see more things adjust in reality. And with the sextile and the trine, this to me indicates in a lot of ways that that is working to a certain extent, that is working, that we are able to sustain these new behaviors that are more passionate, more based on our emotions and instincts and impulses, and that we are getting more confident in them, that we are believing more in them, right? Our value systems, that we are adjusting to them, and that we are starting to see them work more in reality with Virgo being an earth sign, that we are starting to see them work more in reality, and that we are starting to feel more at ease surrounding them, right? With Taurus being Venus ruled. Okay, not only that, but with the South Node, maybe I'll start there. The South Node is a lot about releasing things that might have been hard for us in the past or that are no longer working for us. And with this positive alignment, it means we're actually able to do that successfully as well. What are we releasing that are no longer working for us? Virgo. What is Virgo about when we're releasing it, right? Negative when we're releasing it. Well, Virgo when negative is about overthinking. It's about being too perfectionistic or critical of ourselves and others. Maybe it's about working too hard, overly working in a situation, which can create health issues and burn ourselves out, right? It's about us letting go of that. It's about us no longer striving to do things in a new way, trying extra hard to do things in a new way, overcomplicating the situation, overthinking our actions, being too critical about whether or not we're doing these new actions right and in what way, or perfectionistic, or all of that, and no longer kind of falling back into old habits and patterns of having to work too hard, right? Be too traditional, be too serious and responsible, because Virgo's, is an earth sign like Capricorn and some of the others. It's us no longer doing that as well, which to me is a very, very good thing that's happening, right? Do you see? Not only that, but I need to note as well, it's making this positive aspect to the North Node in Pisces. The North Node is good. It's about our purpose at this time. Pisces is right, the opposite of Virgo. It's a lot about compassion towards ourselves. It's a lot about more ease or more rest or having more downtime. It's also as well about releasing the past, right? Letting things go that are no longer meant for us. It's also about kind of honoring more of our emotions and going a little bit more with the flow in our situation as well, that I think we're also doing and is also coming together here too, which is nice. This full moon is actually very well aspected here. So this can be a very good thing, maybe to bring that together before I add more onto it in the interpretation. But at this full moon in Taurus, we're trying to step more fully into some kind of new behaviors in life that are more passionate instead of responsible and traditional that we've been trying to sustain for almost all this year, and that we've recently gone all in on and taken a big leap of faith to do. And it's working. We are sustaining these behaviors. We are sustaining these new behaviors more regularly, more completely, more fully, more consistently, of acting on our passions day in and day out. Not only that, we're also getting more confident in these behaviors and that they're going to work, and adjusting more of our skills and our values towards it, and actually beginning to see it work a little more, not fully. I think we still need more time for that, but to see a little more work to change our reality to be different and better. Not only are we doing that, but we're also releasing any negative mindsets or negative thoughts in the way of us having these new behaviors, any tendency to be too hard or critical on ourselves and what we're doing, or over perfectionistic or overthink and overwork. We're releasing those, and we're being more compassionate to ourselves in these new behaviors. We're allowing ourselves to kind of be a little bit more at ease, to take some downtime if we need some downtime while we're doing things in this different way, whatever our emotions are telling us about it as well. And to also see more things from the past release itself, in the physical, I think, and in the internal and in the emotional, but also in the physical too, that is no longer meant for us and for the new chapter of life that we're trying to get to. That again is very, very good. Okay. That then leads me to the next alignment that I want to mention, which starts to get a little bit more challenging. There's always some sort of challenging alignment going on. Okay, can't ever get away from that, unfortunately. But the next alignment I want to mention is one that's a bit more challenging. It's going to be Venus over here in Libra, which is making an opposition over to Chiron in Aries. Okay, this to me is a little bit more of a challenge, because it is an opposition, which is technically a hard aspect, especially to Chiron, which can indicate some triggers and some insecurities. So this one to me is a bit more difficult. What is the difficulty there when it comes to that? Well, Venus is in Libra, right? Venus is, and Libra are correlated. Maybe I'll start with that. Venus and Libra are correlated because they both have to do with balance. They also have to do with ease in a lot of ways. They also are a little bit more of like a slower sign, because it's Venus, right, and not Mars. That's happening. And I think that I need to note that we've been cultivating that. We've been cultivating a little bit of that sense of ease in our situation, especially with the full moon being in Taurus, which is also ruled by Venus. So we've got two things ruled by Venus here, a lot of Venus energy going on, right? This is about us trying to cultivate more balance, more ease, maybe even more rest in this different space that we're now in. And I think with the opposition to Chiron, right? Chiron can indicate triggers and insecurities, maybe finding that a little hard to do. And I don't want to say entirely hard, right? Because it's like the moon is in Taurus, also about slow and ease, because it's Venus ruled, just like Venus itself, okay, which is in Libra, which is also Venus ruled. I don't want to say that we're having a hard time kind of being at ease around the situation, or that we're having a hard time necessarily taking it slow. I think we are doing that. I think we are doing that. And I think there's something that feels good about it. But I think there's something, maybe I'll put it in another way, about more of a natural rhythm to it, because Venus, Libra and Taurus can be very musical, and we've got both of them here together. That is coming on, the full moon in Taurus and Venus in Libra. I think that we're having difficulty more fully finding a rhythm. Maybe I'll say that in some sort of way about it, without kind of, holding things too tight or holding things too closely. Sometimes Taurus can do that, being a fixed earth sign. It's a lot about me and mine, my possession. Sometimes Taurus can hold things a little too close to the chest, so to speak. And I think we're still having a little bit of a problem kind of finding a natural rhythm or a natural pace, especially because Venus too can also be about natural things or nature. I think we're having problems finding a little bit of a rhythm with what we're doing, where it comes and goes and ebbs and flows, and where we don't get so worried about it. And all of that, especially because Chiron in Aries can indicate some triggers, Chiron around these new behaviors that we have, being the first sign of the zodiac and about Mars and these different actions that it is that we're doing. Not only do I think there's something here that is not entirely right when it comes to the rhythm about these new behaviors, right? We have these new behaviors, we're sustaining them. We're doing very, very good at that, but there's something like we're still a little too close to the chest with these behaviors, holding things too tightly, not allowing air in, Venus and Libra, more air, more room to breathe, But I think as well, there's also something I should note with relationships too, because Venus and Libra are also both about relationships, which does make it distinctly different from Taurus. I think there's also still something about relationships that we still aren't sure how to fit in to these new behaviors that it is that we have. Okay, because if you watch the context that I gave earlier in this video, a lot of the year and in the context has not been about relationships. It's not been about what other people and what they think and what they're doing. No, the majority of this year has really been about us, what we're doing, getting ourselves right, getting into a new experience, trying to do things that are good for us. So I don't think we've really figured out how to bring relationships into these actions and into these things that it is that we're doing. As well to figure that out. I think we're trying to do it because Venus is in Libra. It does like to be in Libra, and it has been in there for a few weeks because it's now at the later degrees. So I think we have been trying to do it, but I think we still haven't fully figured out yet exactly where relationships fully come together in this different space that we've got, and with these new behaviors and this new self that we're becoming. Not only that, but other things I can mention, Venus does have to do with money. And maybe this can also indicate some difficulty still around money, still some uncertainty, right? And Taurus does have to do with money as well. Still some difficulty around money where maybe we're feeling better about money or figuring out new ways to make money, but maybe the money flow isn't there. Maybe I'll say that. The full flow, the full rhythm isn't there. Not with the new behaviors, not with relationships, not with the money. The money still isn't coming in more of that easy rhythmic way than it is that we want either. That can be hard. Not only that, but Venus too and Libra are also about the harvest as well, being the sign of fall, of autumn, that starts autumn in the Northern Hemisphere, right? And fall was when all the efforts of the past that you've done, all the plants that you've planted finally become ready to harvest, to eat, and to use and everything like that. So I think this is us also still, waiting to see the efforts, our efforts and these new actions work more to manifest a different and better experience of our lives, to be harvested, so to speak. And I think we're seeing it a little bit because, again, there's something that I like a lot about this full moon in Taurus, very well aspected, but it's still not flowing. We're seeing, yes, things change in our lives to be new, different, and better, and these new behaviors, but the change of events, the events changing in our external reality, it still just doesn't seem to be flowing, in the way that we might like, either where it feels like it's happening in a way that's supernatural or that is, maybe coming more easily as well, that I think can also be a bit of a challenge too, making us feel like, we're still not, I mean, we are very close, extremely close to the best expression and the highest expression of these new behaviors and to getting into a new and better experience of life, but they're still just a teensy bit out of reach, okay? And again, I don't want to make this sound horrible because there's something better going on here. And when I say better going on here, I mean, the full moon is in Taurus, right? Venus's sign, which is this aspect. And it's in Venus's sign, Taurus is very well aspected with the sextile and trines to the nodal axis. So there's something very good. And even though Venus is making this opposition to Chiron, right? It's also in Libra, a sign it likes. So this isn't like a terrible thing to occur. This isn't a horrible thing. I don't think I don't think we're being set back. We're just feeling like it's just not quite like we're so close to everything coming together. We're so freaking close, but it's just like not quite flowing in that easy, natural way that we want. And there's all these parts of our life with relationships and money that still isn't like gelling, that still isn't like coming together, to make that like that whole complete picture that it is that we want to see. Not only that, but maybe some other things I'll note too, before I kind of repeat that and bring it together, is that Venus is also making two quincunxes. It's the the head of a yod. It's making two quincunxes as well over to Neptune in Pisces as well, and Uranus in Gemini here too. And when you get a planet making two quincunxes to two planets that are making a sextile with one another, with which Neptune and Uranus are doing, that's called a yod. A yod does indicate challenges, but it also indicates great purpose, and great purpose to the planet that's at the tip of the yod, which in this case is Venus in Libra. So this is another thing that's like showing me that the Venus, there's something about this Venus in Libra that like we got to figure out. We got to get together. That is really needed. What might be the issues here? Well, Venus in Libra is quincunx Neptune in Pisces. This is a hard aspect with the quincunx. Neptune can indicate confusion. Pisces is about the past, fully leaving the past behind, maybe not feeling like the past has fully been left behind, right? Not feeling like we can fully see clearly, because Neptune can bring confusion by hard aspect of what we're trying to create. It's also making the quincunx over to Uranus and Gemini. Uranus can bring anxiety and nervousness a little bit, in our mind surrounding things as well. That can be a bit hard. But again, I think that's all I can say. Maybe I should just keep it very simple. There's something that's just not flowing. It's working. Something's working, but it's not flowing, right? Something's coming together, but it just doesn't feel natural yet. It just doesn't feel comfortable yet. It just doesn't feel like there's maybe that pace that we might like about it, that I think is making us anxious and nervous and a little confused and uncertain and uneasy. Okay, so that's what I'll say there. Now to kind of bring that together before I add another two things onto it, is that at this full moon in Taurus, we are we are more fully sustaining, I think, some new behaviors that are more passionate instead of responsible and traditional that we've been trying to get all this year, especially after taking a big leap of faith to go all in on them. We are getting more confident in these new behaviors and adjusting more of our skill set and values towards them, and are trying to be, more at ease with the pace of things, and are trying to see more things shift in our reality as a result of these new behaviors to be different and better. And it is happening. It is happening. It is happening. We are doing all of those things, and we're releasing being perfectionistic or critical of ourselves, or working too hard, or overthinking about the situation, or perfectionism. And we are being more compassionate towards ourselves and giving ourselves more downtime and trusting more in the process, and all of that. But even though we're doing that, there's something about it that it just still doesn't feel like it's fully flowing yet, fully coming together in the way that we might like to get to where we need to go, even though good things are happening. And we're still not feeling like we fully figured out how relationships and money figure into the situation, and how they can do it in a way more seamlessly that feels more natural as well, and that is going to make a more whole and complete picture, that is making us feel still a little uncertain of what the future holds and of where we're going, and confused, and maybe still a little stuck in the past and a little anxious and nervous about our situation as well. Okay, that then leads me to the next alignment that I want to mention, which is going to be here. Mars and Sagittarius, which it did recently, right before this full moon in Taurus, making an opposition over to Uranus in the sign of Gemini right here. Okay, now this to me is a little bit of a difficult alignment. Okay, this to me is a bit of a difficult alignment as well, because it's an opposition, which is a hard aspect, especially to Uranus, an outer planet, which can be a little difficult because it's further away from Earth, from here, which is where we live. Also, too, because Mars can also be a little bit of a challenge. The ancient astrologers consider it a malefic planet. Also, too, because both of these are the very beginning degrees of a sign, which are a little youthful and unrefined and immature. And also, too, because Mars is very close to Mercury, which is about to go retrograde over this spot in the sign of Sagittarius, which is a sign that Mercury does not like. So let me count the ways, a lot of ways. I'm not really into this alignment. Okay, what is this about? Well, let me start with the Mars in Sagittarius. I'm going to interpret this neutral, even though I'm going to work my way around to a challenge here. But what is this? Mars is a lot about passion, can be a lot about drive, can be a lot about passion and drive, and where more of our focus and energy and motivation is. And it's in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is about new things as well, which can be like new, different, and better circumstances that we want to manifest. And it's at the very 0 degrees. The very beginning degrees of a sign is the very tippy beginning, early, tiny beginning. So in some way, this is us beginning to feel like new things are manifesting, like new things are manifesting in our lives, and starting to feel some of that fresh energy of like, we're so freaking close, to being where we need to be, which I think we are. I think we are so close. Okay. That's going on. But not only can it bring that, but Mars sometimes too, again, because the ancient astrologers considered it a malefic planet, can sometimes get a little impatient or can sometimes get a little anxious as well, and can try to push things too hard, too soon, too fast, kind of before we're ready. And in Sagittarius, to have more new things manifest. They're like, let's get this show on the road. Let's bring more things together in the way that we need. Not only that, but it's making that opposition to Uranus in the sign of Gemini. Uranus is about the sudden unexpected. If it's not about the sudden unexpected, it's just about the unique, the innovative, or the different. And it's in Gemini about an idea, thought, news, or conversation. So not only are we really wanting to like get this show on the road, let's speed up more of this process. Let's hurry up. Let's freaking find this flow. Let's find this flow and this rhythm that we need stat. It's also about unexpected thoughts or ideas, or just unique thoughts and ideas, maybe news or conversations with other people also happening out of the blue as well, that we might want to act on. Mars, act on right away. Act on right away to create more new situations in our lives, right? Because Sagittarius wants that new feeling, that different feeling, more new, different, better. Sagittarius is very optimistic, new, different, better experiences in our life, and to get on top of that. So it can create a lot of that going on. I really want to find my rhythm. I really want more things to come together. And so I'm getting impatient, Mars, I'm going to push for it. And now there's a lot of unexpected ideas coming up, and thoughts and news and conversations. And of course, I don't want to wait. I want to act on them now in order to push everything forward. Okay, that can happen, and that can make us act. Maybe I'll keep going. That can make us act, because Mars is the planet of action, in unrefined ways, especially at the very beginning degrees of a sign, which are not the most sure of themselves and are not the most wise. That can have us act immediately on some of these unexpected ideas that we get, to put them into place right away in a way that may not be the best. Okay. That might not be the best. And that might not be the best either immediately, right? That you may then do and realize, oh shoot, I'm not ready for this. Or that may not be the best that you might realize a week or so from now, that you might realize later. And maybe I lean a little bit more towards that because of the Mercury retrograde, right? Because Mars is so close to Mercury, which is about to go retrograde in the few days after the full moon in Taurus. Okay. And when Mercury is about to go retrograde, right? But it hasn't been retrograde. A lot of times we can think we know something, right? Mercury is about our mind, our conscious clarity of mind, our thoughts, which just happens to be the ruler of Uranus in Gemini, where that alignment is. We can think we know something right before Mercury goes retrograde. We can think we're clear. We're so certain something's right. We're going to do it. We're going to make it happen. And then all of a sudden Mercury goes retrograde and everything freaking falls apart. Everything falls apart. And Mercury hasn't gone retrograde yet. And so this can indicate this sense here of like, I really want to find the rhythm. I haven't found it yet. I'm so close. I'm just going to push a little bit more. I'm just going to try to push to tip my hand on the scales. And I've got some crazy ideas and thoughts and conversations coming out of the blue that I'm going to make happen. I'm going to act on it. You think you're acting on it right. You think you're doing the right thing. And then either it falling apart right away, or gradually over the course of the next few weeks while Mercury goes retrograde, which is like it goes retrograde for 3 weeks, but it hasn't gone retrograde yet. So the next 3 or 4 weeks, this all of a sudden you're going to realize maybe isn't right or isn't the best. Okay. That might not work out in the end, which can also make you very frustrated either now or in the next few weeks, and feel maybe a little stuck. I want to say a little stuck when it comes to it, or a little confused about what is going on or why. Okay. So I think I want to note that there. So maybe let me summarize that before I give you some advice. So what is going on at this full moon in Taurus? We are like more fully stepping into new behaviors that we've been trying to get all this year that are based more of our passions and emotions instead of responsibility or tradition. Not only are we sustaining these behaviors, but we're sustaining these behaviors that we've done to a more full degree, right? After taking a leap of faith to going all in them, and we are getting more confident with them. We are starting to see them change our reality a little bit more to get to a new and different and better experience. We are trying to be a little more at ease in these new behaviors with less pushing and forcing, and that is good. That's working. We are doing that. We are doing that. We are sustaining these behaviors. We are feeling more at ease. We're getting more confident. They are working a little. On top of that, we are seeing more things from the past release, and we're letting go of perfectionism and being too critical and overthinking and overworking, and are letting ourselves rest and be more compassionate. But even though we're doing a lot of things right, and a lot of things are beginning to come together little by little, there's still not this full flow. There's still not this full rhythm of things just happening naturally and easily, one right after the other, coming together in that way that we might like. That's still making us feel like we can't fully see the future or what our lives are going to be, and unclear and hazy about things, and anxious and nervous and confused. Not only that, but we still don't know how to get money in the flow of what we need. And we still don't know how relationships fit into this new way of doing things either. That's also a little bit hard too, about the situation that's going on, that's making it uncomfortable. And on top of this flow, of us not having the flow and not fully knowing how relationships and money are going to factor into it and all come together, we start to get impatient again. Because we are so close to a different experience, we can almost taste it, that we then begin to want to push to get there faster. And on top of that, we get unexpected ideas, thoughts, and news and conversations that we're very excited about, that we want to put into action right away, and that we try to put into action right away, thinking that we're doing the right thing to improve our situation, but in the end isn't really going to work, because the way that we're going about these actions and acting on these ideas, and maybe even these ideas themselves, are just not that refined. And not that they're not that refined or mature, or there's something about them that's not completely right and fully fleshed out yet for our situation. Okay. That is either now or at some point in the next few weeks going to make us feel stuck yet again and frustrated and not where we need to be. Okay. So why now? Maybe now I'm going to switch into why and advice. Why now? Is there something about these actions that is not right? That's going on. That's not where it needs to be. Well, that to me is going to bring me to Mercury retrograde. There's just the final thing we're going to talk about here today. Now, right, Mercury clearly is not retrograde yet. You would know if it was, it would be red in this chart. The degrees would be red, and it's not. So it's not retrograde yet, but it's going to go retrograde in the next few days. When I see a planet go retrograde, the way that I think of it a lot of times is that it pulls more the opposite sign of the sign that it's going retrograde in. That sign is the one that's more needed. And the reason for that is because opposites balance each other out. That's like a law of the universe. It's like there's something about polarity and about opposites that help each other, right? Like magnets, to kind of recorrect them and rejuvenate them in a way. And so when I see a planet go retrograde, like in this case, it's Mercury and Sagittarius, to me, what we really need to cultivate more of is not necessarily Mercury and Sagittarius, or else Mercury wouldn't need to go retrograde there because it would be fine. What we really need to cultivate more of is going to be the opposite, which in this case is going to be some more of that Gemini energy, which fortunately we're leading up to a full moon too soon. We need to cultivate more of that because it's that Gemini energy that maybe is missing, or if not missing, is going to help us better balance out the Sagittarius. Okay, what is the Gemini all about? Well, Gemini is not about new things. Okay, because it's the opposite of Sagittarius, right? Sagittarius is about new things. Sagittarius is about big ideas, big belief systems, things of that sort, experimenting, all of that. Gemini is not about that. Gemini is about making things familiar. It's about things close to home. It's about things like the back of your hand. It's those kind of things that it is. So I think the reason why, now that we understand that, the reason why there's something about these actions that is not right, that we want to take, and about this pushing and forcing, is because our situation doesn't need right now or after this point for the next few weeks more pushing and forcing, and our situation doesn't need more new things or us to learn or explore new things. No, what our situation needs is simply for us to settle into where we are, to adapt to where we are, to be okay with where we are, and to get more used to that, and to just like, what is it, like till the soil, like do the stuff we've already been doing, and just like get more comfortable with that. That's really what's needed, especially too with all of this Venus energy going on, right? The full moons in Taurus, a Venus ruled sign. Venus is in Libra. It's another, its home sign, another one of its home signs, right? A Venus ruled sign. We need more Venus, less Mars, and we need some of this Mercury stuff. It's like, the reason why these actions aren't going to work is because we don't need to push and force, and we don't need to keep trying new things. We need to get used to where we currently are. We need to do that, and to get more clear on what is currently going on in our situation and transpiring within ourselves, and also to get more clear on relationships as well, and how relationships come into the picture, because Mercury is also going to retrograde back into Scorpio at some point as a part of this upcoming retrograde as well. And Scorpio is about relationships, also about money, right? So we also need time too to figure out more of the relationships and money stuff, and to kind of get more used to these new behaviors and how it's going to integrate with relationships and money to come together there, So I think that's the thing. And if we, to maybe put it another way, if we continue taking action and doing things without fully understanding where we are, without fully understanding our current situation that we found ourselves in, and adapting to that and getting more used to that, then we run the risk of doing new things that we aren't ready for. Do you see? Doing new things that we aren't ready for, or doing new things that just aren't based on a true understanding of what's actually happening in our situation as well. So I think that's the thought there. Not only is that the thought there as well, is that we need to hold off on putting new ideas and insights into action in order to get more used to where we are and more comfortable, and adapt to it, and just learn more about the ins and outs of it, and figure out how relationships and money figure into it. But because otherwise we might not act with a full understanding of our reality and of our situation. But the other thing I want to note too is that there's also a sense as well, is like, because we've already done really what needs to be done, and I think I mentioned this a little in the last horoscope I gave you 2 weeks ago for the new moon in Libra. But another thought here too is like, we've really already done the things that we need to do in order to get us to a new and better experience, or if not done them, we've already initiated them, right? We need to keep doing them, but we've already initiated those things, and we just need to make them more solid, especially because, again, Gemini is about familiar, staying with what we've already done, with what's familiar, not with plowing new ground. We've already done those things. Now, will there be a time to do these new ideas that we now have? Will there be a time to do these new ideas that we're now getting to move our lives forward, and where we can put them into action more easily? Yes, there will be a time to do those. It could be when Mercury finishes retrograde and comes back through Sagittarius. What is it, like January or February of next year? And I especially like March and April. There, maybe more so April with Aries season. March and April. I like a lot. So it doesn't mean that these ideas we're never going to get to act on. Okay, we're going to be able to act on them maybe around, I'll just say March or April of next year. Maybe I'll push it there. We're going to be able to act in the March or April of next year much more quickly and easily, with more wisdom and insight. It's just not right now, because for right now, we've done all that we needed to do. For right now, we've done all that we needed to do to get us to a new and better experience. And then next year, we'll pick up the next iteration of that, sometimes when you're going about doing a project, you've got steps. Well, we already finished step 1, and now we need to just make sure step 1's great and going. And then once that's done, we'll get on to step 2, and step 2 is next year. And here we are with step 1 this year still. So there's that. And another thing I want to note too is that this is how the zodiac works, right? That I also plan on explaining in an upcoming course I'm going to do on the basics of astrology, hopefully next March or April. But is that this is what happens when you get to Libra season, right? Libra is the second half of the zodiac because it opposes Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac. And Libra is about the harvest. It's about harvesting. And when you're harvesting what you've already done. So Libra season, anything after Libra season until the next Aries season, we're not plowing new ground. It's not doing new things. It's taking the stuff that we've already done and working with that. And if we did good things since Aries season, then that's great. There's a lot of good things to come that Libra season and onwards can bring. And if we didn't do something right from earlier in the year, then this is the time to correct it or to deal with that as well. So that's another thing here is that, the time after Libra season is not really about doing a whole bunch of new stuff necessarily, as much as it is about dealing with what you've already done and really working through some of that as well. Okay. And I think that's it. I think that's the advice that I want to give, or that's what I think is happening here. And that also too is the advice, right? Don't push and force to do more new things, because that's not what the situation needs. It's going to complicate things, probably not going to do it right, going to end up feeling frustrated and stuck. Instead, stop pushing and forcing more things to happen faster and just be content with where you are and be content with what you've recently done and get more familiar to that and how that's working, and try to figure out how to now fix the relationships and money and integrate that into this different space and to get more comfortable to it so that it emerges more and more naturally, because you can do these other things later. And when you do these other things later, you'll have more wisdom about how to do it. Okay. So that's the advice, and I say that because I don't think that that's necessarily going to come naturally for some of us. I think that realization might come through a little bit of an inner struggle to get there, but as what ultimately I think is going to need to happen, especially as Mercury goes retrograde and onwards. Okay, and that's it, because that's it. I'm now just going to repeat all of that one last time without the astrological jargon, so you can hopefully get a better idea of what I think is going on here. So let me do that now. What I think is going on at this full moon in Taurus is that we are more fully sustaining some new behaviors that are based more on our passions, especially after taking a leap of faith to go all in on them more fully over the course of the past few weeks. We also are feeling a lot more confident in them and valuing them and more at ease with them. And we also are seeing some things in our physical reality begin to change as a result of those behaviors to be different and better, which has really been something we've been trying to do for a very, very long time. Not only that, but we're also feeling like the past is releasing. We're becoming more at ease. We're letting go of perfectionism, overthinking, overworking, being too critical or perfectionistic, and too logical and all of that, which is great. But even though a lot of great things are happening, sustaining new behaviors, feeling more at ease about them, seeing our physical reality change to be better, there's something about it that still feels not right, that still doesn't feel like it's really all coming together fully in the way that we need. And that still doesn't feel totally natural or like it's totally flowing in this more rhythmic way that feels more enjoyable there, especially when it comes to relationships and money, that is making us feel a little kind of confused about our life and where it's going, and hazy and uncertain and anxious and nervous and maybe still a little bit stuck. And because of that, because we're feeling so close to where we want to be, yet still not there and a little stuck, I think we then start to try to take matters into our own hands to push the situation forward more and to do more things to kind of push ourselves into this new experience, to kind of speed things up. And I think we also get some sudden unexpected news, thoughts, ideas, or conversations as well about that. And I think that only complicates the situation and makes the situation worse, or if not complicates the situation and makes the situation worse, I think it's eventually going to backfire. And these actions on these new ideas are just not going to fully come together quite yet in the way that we might like. And these new ideas aren't going to come together yet in the way that we might like, not because they're never going to come together, they are. But just because what we need to do first is not push and force and not do more things. What we need to do first is to just take it more easy and adapt more to this different experience of life that we're in, and get more confident and more comfortable and more familiar with it, and to know all the ins and the outs, and to really take the time to work out the relationships and the money, even if it feels like we're kind of stagnating a little bit while we do that, because doing that is then going to help us at a later date finally bring more things together, finally bring all the things together that it is that we need, and get more of that clarity that we need to take these actions on these new ideas in a healthier or wiser way that's actually going to work for our situation. Okay. And that's it. Okay. Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm going to say there. All right. Sorry, I've got a super dry throat right now. I'm feeling like I'm actually getting a little sick, so I'm going to take a sip of water for a minute. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say just a few things about the energy in a more conversational way, so you can hopefully get a different and better idea of what's going on here. I don't know if I really have too much to add, though. I think to me, what stands out the most is that we are making progress. Like, make no mistake, there's some progress being made. Okay, there's some progress being made here. What is the progress being made for at this time in our lives? Well, the progress is twofold. The progress is being made in our behaviors and our actions, right? Where we are acting in different ways. And those ways are where we're acting more in our passions and our instincts and our emotions and our impulses, instead of responsibility or tradition or logic, right? So we're making progress to do that, and to do that way more fully than we have, and to stay more consistent in it than we ever have, instead of backing out or getting scared or doing it sometime or doing it another. We are making progress in that regard. And maybe I need to emphasize that for a minute as well, how important that is to the sustainable acting in this new way with these new behaviors that are more passionate in a more sustainable way. Because I think for most of the year prior to this point, prior to now, we have been acting in these new behaviors that are more passionate instead of responsible and traditional, all of that. But it just hasn't been necessarily super consistent. We keep falling out of it. We keep falling out of it, either into old habits and patterns that are the opposite of that, traditional, right, more logical, all of that, or we keep falling into fear and then just holding back and not doing anything, or we hesitate, or just a bunch of these things, or we'll do it a little bit instead of a lot, right? I think that's been a thing that's been going on for the past 6 months since Aries season. And there's something different that's going on at this full moon in Taurus, is where we're finally doing these new behaviors in a way that's more sustainable, in a way that's more consistent. So it's not like we're only doing it when we're comfortable, or we're only doing it on like Fridays or something when it's easy. It's like, no, now we're doing these passionate behaviors day in and day out, even when it's it doesn't feel super comfortable, right? Even when it doesn't feel super comfortable, we're still doing it, and we're staying with it, even if we have fear, even if we're not comfortable. It's like now we're doing it in a way that's more sustainable, and we're keeping at it. So I want to say that's one of the very good things going on at this full moon. Okay, we're acting in these different ways, passionate, more based on emotion, intuition, and instinct instead of responsibility and tradition, and we are doing it in a way that's more consistent and sustainable, day in and day out, that we can hang with long term, not just do on occasion or whenever it feels good. We are doing that. Not only that, but maybe I should also say there's the confidence, and maybe I'll say some of the courage, but there's also the confidence as well happening too, a confidence in our abilities that to act in this way, and confidence in that these actions are going to work, or that they're what's needed right now at this time. We're becoming more confident and adjusting more of our value systems to value these things and believe that they're necessary. So that's a very good thing that's going on here that I can't necessarily say that we had earlier this year. and people sometimes comment on my videos and be like, well, this is the same horoscope that you gave earlier this year. This is not, I mean, of course it's related. Everything's related, right? I mean, that everything's related. We're doing a horoscope here. We're talking, these planets don't change signs overnight. They stay in signs for years and years and years. You know what I mean? It's like, especially the outer planets. Of course we've been talking about the same theme since April of this year about adopting these new behaviors, but we're not doing it the same way we were doing it for the past 6 months. We're doing it better now. We're doing it better now with these behaviors, okay? A way that's more sustainable, okay? And with more confidence and where we believe and value it more, okay? Not only is that the good thing that's going on at this full moon in Taurus, but I also want to note as well that another thing that's going on at this full moon in Taurus is not just internally us getting more of these actions, right, and becoming more sustainable and more confident in them, but there's also some things going on externally as well. And I think some things that are going on externally too is that a few more things. I'm not saying a lot, okay? I'm just saying a few more things. A few more little things are changing. A few more things are changing in our life, okay, externally. To be what? To be different and better and to be more in alignment with these new behaviors. And the whole point of these new behaviors is to create a life that's more aligned with our passions and with our intuition and with our emotions and with our instincts and with our impulses. They're changing that way, right? Because if we want a new experience of life, we have to act in new ways in order to get it. Because if we're going to do the same things we've always done, we're going to get the same things we've always gotten, which is not where we want to be. So they're related, okay? We're acting in new ways. Okay. And at this full moon, we're finally doing it in a way where we're more confident about it, valuing it, and where it's more sustainable. Not just sometimes, half the time, maybe fall back, fear, hesitate. No, we're just doing it. Just doing it every day, day in and day out, and more confident about it. And not only are we doing that, that's good, but because we are doing these actions more sustainable, day in and day out, honoring our emotions, we're also seeing a few more things, not everything, but a few more things change externally in our experience. Okay, so that's also the good thing that's happening as well, to get away from the old things we didn't like and to align more with a different sense of self that's more in tune with who we actually are at our core and our emotions. Okay, these are two very good things that are going on. Right? And we're releasing a lot of the old, maybe another thought, we're releasing a lot of the old overworking and perfectionism and overthinking and being too critical. Like, we're releasing all of that. Very good. But even though there's something very good going on, do you see it? It's just not flowing. Even though there's something very good going on, it still feels like there's a brick wall there. It still feels like there's a brick wall going on where we're never actually able to fully make the full changes, make the final changes, or where there's a brick wall going on where it just never feels supernatural, like it's just easy and coming out of us and more rhythmic without as much, focus on it. That's happening. That I think is the hard thing. Okay. At its core. I think that's it. Yeah. I feel like that's the thing. Okay. A lot of good things are going on at this full moon, and a lot of internal changes to finally do these new behaviors in a way that's more sustainable and more consistent, with more confidence and with less overthinking and perfectionism and criticism and all of that. And we're also seeing a few things change externally, but we want the dam to break. You know what I mean? Like, when is the dam going to break and all the water going to come out? Like but even though good things are happening, it's just not flowing. It just hasn't fully come together. It's just not there. It still feels kind of out of reach. It still doesn't feel natural. There's also the relationships and the money are key. We still don't know how the relationships are going to fit into it. We still don't know how the money are going to fit into it. And because of that, what do we want to do? Because of that, we want to push and force. We want to push and force to do even more in this new behaviors, to do even more of this new behaviors, okay, that we've been doing. Because remember, we're not going backwards. Now we've sustained these new behaviors. Now we're locked in gear. We're locked in new behaviors, passionate gear, right? The Taurus, the bull, putting our feet in. We are now locked in these new behaviors. So the way for us to respond now to this feeling of still not being where we need to be is not to hold back and not to get scared and not to curl up in our shell. The way now to deal with this, we think, now that we're sustaining these behaviors, is to do more of these new things. Okay, do more of these behaviors that are following our emotions and things of that sort. And the challenge really is the challenge of this full moon is that that's not really what's needed. What's needed is not really for us to do more, at least not anymore, not for the next few weeks. It's just for us to enjoy what we've done and appreciate what we've done and get used to what we've done and learn about what we've done and take the time to adapt to figure out how relationships and money fit in, to stop skipping steps, Like sometimes when we want to push things too much, it's like we skip the important steps that are needed to make it workable. So it's like to stop skipping the important steps of working out the relationships and money to fit them in, and stop trying to get to the end result that you ignore the process, So I think that's the big thing that's going on. Okay. Before, maybe in the past few months, we would back out at this point. Maybe in the, because I want to show you another difference, how this horoscope is different from the horoscopes I've been giving you for the past 6 months, right? Another way this is different is not only that we're finally sustaining more fully these new behaviors that are more passionate and doing them day in and day out, but now our response to hardship, to when life isn't changing to be what we want. It's not, oh, I'm scared, I'm going to back out, I'm going to stop, I'm going to be sad, I'm going to cry. No, the response now is, I've got it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to follow my emotions. They're going to work. I'm going to keep pushing forward. I'm going to keep pushing forward. Okay. To act in this different way. Now the emotional response is different, or the natural, the instinctual response, whatever it is a bit different than what it was before here. Even though that response may also not be the best. And that's when life is funny, isn't it? It's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like when we were getting scared and weren't doing anything, nothing was working, right? Because we weren't doing anything differently that we need. And now we're doing things differently. And now we're ready to go all in. And now it's also not working again. That's what kind of makes it frustrating here. But I don't make up the rules. I don't make up the rules about how these alignments happen. Okay. It's like, it just is whatever you believe makes the planets and the stars, makes up these kind of things, so it kind of gets us in a weird situation here. And I think maybe the ultimate message, that I might leave you on here is going to be back to the new moon that we had in Taurus earlier this year. Okay. Because again, like there's something about the last half of the zodiac that we're now on after Libra season. It is different. It is different than the first half of the zodiac since Aries season, okay, of this year, but they're related and they're connected and they work together. And especially the new moons and the full moons work together. So remember, we had a new moon in Taurus in May of this year that I did mention in the context section in this video. And remember, if you watch that video, and if you haven't, it's always good to go back, because that new moon in Taurus is connected to this full moon in Taurus. What we talked a lot about at that new moon in Taurus is that we're trying to sustain these new behaviors to honor more of our passions instead of responsibility and tradition. And that there was something about it that felt slow. That was something that I brought up a lot in that horoscope, is that there was something about it that kind of felt slow, that was a little frustrating. And because this full moon is connected to that new moon, right? New moons open cycles, right? The new moon opened a cycle in Taurus. The full moon is closing a cycle in Taurus. Okay, we're going to come back to that. And I think that another message of this full moon in Taurus is to feel that slow energy that we had, that, right, maybe we felt a little earlier, to feel that slow energy and to stop seeing it as a bad thing, right? I think that's the ultimate message as well. Not only is the advice of this full moon in Taurus of like, stop forcing more new things to happen. You're good now. Take a break, right? Like chill and adapt to where you are. But the message is to see if you feel like there's still a little bit of a slower pace that's going on, to see that is a good thing. We need to more fully see that as a good thing. Because at the new moon in Taurus a few months ago, we were feeling it, we were frustrated about it, and now we need to complete that cycle. And now we need to see that as a good thing. Because what actually makes time fast or slow? Okay. And time, it moves the same rate, mostly, okay? Obviously I'm not like an astrophysicist. I think there are cases in space where time moves very fast, okay? And I think I've heard in higher altitudes, time moves faster, but for the majority of people on Earth, right? We all live here on Earth. Time like moves the same for everyone, right? Like when we tell someone we're gonna meet them at 3:00 in the afternoon, they're also gonna know it's 3:00 in the afternoon and meet us at 3:00 in the afternoon, right? And when we tell someone they're 60 minutes in an hour, right? That there's 60 minutes in an hour. It's not that there's 60 minutes an hour for one person, and then for another person, there's 80 minutes in an hour. It's like the time for most of us humans here on Earth with gravity, time is more of a finite concept. We know that there's 60 seconds in a minute. We know that there's 60 minutes in an hour. We know that there's 24 hours in a day, right? That is what there always is. So time moving fast and slow is kind of a weird thing, because in many ways, time is not fast or slow. Time is just time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm explaining it kind of this in the right way, but it's like this idea that time is either moving slow or moving fast has nothing really to do with time itself. Time is the same for almost everybody, the way that we've standardized it here so that we can all meet each other at certain times here on Earth and do certain things and plan stuff, right? Time is time. It moves at the same rate for everybody that it moves. Then why then, right? And it moves the same rate for all the time. Why then do sometimes we feel like time is fast, and why then do we feel like time is slow? Well, sometimes we feel like time is fast and time is slow, not because time itself is necessarily slowing down, not because the clock itself is necessarily moving any slower or faster. The clock itself is moving at the same rate. We feel like time is either fast or slow because of our perspective on it, because of how we make sense of what it is that we're experiencing and what it is that we're going through. And when we're really enjoying life, and when we're really enjoying it and having fun, we feel like time goes faster. And when we're not enjoying life, we feel like it goes slower. So there's another thing that I think is trying to emerge here at this full moon in Taurus is, because remember, there's this theme of like impatience, of like, we're doing so good, but it's still not here. And now we're getting impatient, and because time is, even though we're doing so good, it's still slow. And it's like, but it's not time itself that's actually slow. Time is just time moving at the same rate it always moves, at least for us down here on Earth that we all agree upon, right? Time is moving at the same pace for everyone. What is making time either fast or slow is not time itself. It's your perspective on the time. And I think another message of this full moon in Taurus is you have to change your perspective on time. You have to stop seeing this process of getting to where we need to go as a slow, boring process that's preventing you from living the life that you always wanted to live, because the more you see it that way, the more time is going to feel slow. You have to stop seeing it that way, and you have to start seeing time in this process that we're taking to get to where we want to be as your life. This is your life. It is happening. It is happening now. It's not like your life is postponed later for the future at some future date. It's like, this is your life and this is happening now. And to kind of be more present in the moment with what you have and to enjoy the process, right? Sometimes that keeps coming up, but there's a need to enjoy the process. Even the Sagittarius, if you want to consider that Mercury is actually going retrograde in Sagittarius, is a lot about enjoying the process, because there is no such thing as time moving fast or slow here on Earth that we all agree on. It's in your head, and it's all in your heart. And you got to adjust your head and you got to adjust your heart to enjoy the process that you are, and to see this is a beautiful thing, because when you start to enjoy this process, all of a sudden time's not going to move slow anymore. When you start to enjoy this process, all of a sudden things are going to start to move fast, and before you know it, you're going to be where you want to be, and to be honest with you, it's really not that far away. March of next year is when we're finally going to feel like we're in a different and better experience of life that we've been trying to get to since 2020. And we're going to feel like it's here in a real way that's tangible. Now, there's still going to be a lot more things we need to do to build on top of that new life and to make that new life like more of a thing, like with stuff we like in it. Like, there's still going to be more that needs to be done, but we're no longer going to be trying to manifest the new thing. We're going to be there. So it's really not that far away. We just need to it's not that far away. We just need to enjoy the journey more, because that's going to help time pass by faster without you pushing and forcing. Another thing that I want to note as well while we're on it is, like, sometimes before things can happen in our lives and before things occur, we need to embody it within ourselves. So sometimes before things happen externally in our lives, we need to embody it internally first, which I think has been going on with our actions and behaviors, right? In order for us to get to a new experience of life, we need to do things in a different way, right? And do things as more of an internal perspective on how we act. But I think it also, too, has to do with the new and better experience of life. In order for us to get to a new and better experience of life, we need to start behaving as if life was already new and better, and behaving as if we were already there. And I think there's something about that too that's also trying to emerge, is like we need to stop constantly thinking we're going to get to the new and better experience of life and that it's just out of our grasp and only if we could do more, be better, be different, we'd get there. We need to stop thinking that. And instead we need to realize we're already here. We're creating it now, and we need to be it first, embody it, because when we be it and embody it, it's just naturally going to happen as an extension of ourselves. Okay. And some of that could be because Taurus is about ourself, right? Taurus is about our self-worth. It's about our value. It's about who we are, as individuals. Even the Sagittarius, where the Mercury is going to go retrograde, and the Gemini, the opposite point of that, also has to do with like our ideas and our beliefs and internal thoughts, and the, mentalism, right? Our thoughts create our reality. And I think there's a need of like, we have to believe and feel like we're already in where we want to be, even if we're not already there, because it's that is going to get us there. And it's that's going to make it faster. And maybe too, because that's one of the last things that's missing. I think there's a few other things that are missing. I think we still need to figure out the relationships and the money. I do. I think those are missing. But I think too, it's also the sense of self as well, and of believing that, it's a short time now and we're going to be able to do it. So, I think that's what I want to say there. Yeah. I think the relationships and money still do need to be worked out, not by doing a whole bunch of new things. Maybe I need to note that. The relationships and money still need to be worked out, not by doing a whole bunch of new things, just by doing the things you've already been doing better, or differently, or just more working it out, So that's another thought. The relationships and money do need to be worked out, but not by doing more new things you haven't done before, but by doing the same things you've currently done to just a greater extent or better, or just to sustain that more and to just keep with it more, it's going to work. Okay. And I think that's all I'll say there. Yeah, I think that's it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to your insight degrees. So let's go ahead and let's pull those up on the screen. The insight degrees were not written by me. They're written by someone else named Elias Lonsdale, who channeled the meanings of each of the degrees from spirit, but I find them to be very insightful. So, and interesting and relevant. So I'm going to bring them up here. The full moon is in Taurus at 13 degrees, but the planets are in motion. So I think that 12, 13, and 14 degrees can all be relevant, of before and after. So we're going to look at that. We're going to start with 12 degrees, Taurus. What does it say? Let me just move it so you can see it better. Here we are. Nostalgia and intimately familiar worlds, and that each character is known very well, living inside a hologram which contains every world you have ever known. It is slow, reflective, interior, and recedes into lunar caverns. All is moonlit and evokes philosophical reflections. There is time, there is room. There is permission to be the one who brings back the country, the quiet times, the special touches, who quietly and obtrusively keeps the fiber steady, resourceful and unique, the very best of small town life. A trail left to follow. Nothing is ever lost. The stones do not forget. That to me speaks of, with the vibe I get from that, right, is like slow living. I believe it even said that. There it is, a slow, reflective interior, that recedes into lunar caverns. This to me does indicate like there's something that still feels a little slow about where we want to be, right? We're not quite yet where we want to be, and it still feels a little slow in coming, or like it's not fully here yet. I get that. And because things are slow, there's a lot of time to maybe reflect on things. And there's a lot of things in our mind we're still trying to figure out. But not only do I get that from this degree, I like the small town life. There is something kind of nostalgic about small. I live in a small town now that is very country. I live in the South. And, I feel that there's something about living in the town I live in that is very slow around here. Not necessarily a lot of things open at a lot of hours. And if you ask people to help you come do work and to hire them to do stuff, it'll take them weeks to get here. But But there is something about the small town life that people like. When I talk to people in the town and I'll mention things about, mention stuff, a lot of people here, they like it that way. They like it quiet. They like it slow. They don't like the rush. That to them, they enjoy. And I think that's what I get from this degree is that, yeah, I mean, there is something slower that's happening. There is a lot of time to reflect on like who we've been and who we want to do next. But there's something that, sometimes when there's nothing wrong with things being slow, sometimes there's something good about things being slow because it gives you space to think, cleaner air to breathe, space to think, and to hear your own thoughts and to, connect with people in a more authentic way without rushing to the next meeting or the next event or looking at your phone, and waiting for the next phone call or the next Instagram post or things like that. There's something about the small town, the slow life, the slow, small, things that can be good. And so I think that to me also kind of represents this of like, yeah, there is a slower feeling going on that's a little frustrating. And the answer is not to push more, to make things faster to get where you need to be. The answer is to enjoy the slow pace, because the minute you start enjoying the slow pace, it's not going to feel slow anymore. It's going to feel normal. It's going to feel fine. It's going to feel like a fine pace. And because there's a lot of good things that can happen, in the slowness as well. Okay, now let's go on to the next degree, Taurus 13. It says, pretending to be caught up in the game, playing out the image. Everything becomes contrived and spins out ever further. You have an appetite for self-confounding, musing upon what it might be like, stepping back from one thing to think about another thing, leading to irony and reliance upon wit, standing away from the world, caught in a byway of the personal self and wandering aimlessly but purposefully. Now, this degree isn't as good as the last one. This degree is a lot about getting caught up in a game, right? Things appearing to be one thing, but really another, right? Confusing yourself, all about that. The ultimate intent is to see this one through, to take it on and play it out and be through with it. But meanwhile, it's beguiling and ensnaring to live so far inside with so little real outlet and such a load of concepts and memories and desires to carry around to everywhere you go, as though this were what individuality means. What I'm getting here is that, because these degrees, I think the way Elias Lonsdale wrote them is that they're meant to show a progression as well, of like one's meant to lead into the others. And I get in Taurus 12, there's something about the slower life that's giving us room to think that is ultimately good. And then in Taurus 13, I get this sense that like, it's us seeing the slower life as like, is the slower life, which is ultimately a good thing, is it confusing us? Sometimes when you've been living life fast, so to speak, and then all of a sudden you slow down, or when you've been living life in a stressful way, and then all of a sudden you slow down for a minute, you don't know what to do with yourself. You're like, I've been so busy, I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off, I've been all over the place, everything's been happening, and then all of a sudden I'm in this quiet place where everything's slower, and then all of a sudden you don't know what to do. You're like, who am I without the meeting I have to go to, without the groceries I have to pick up, without the kids I have to pick up from school and take care to practice and do all of this and do that, and without everyone calling me on my phone and all these things happening on social media and all these notifications, but all this next stuff, and I think that's what I get from Taurus 13 is that when we stop the rat race, when we stop doing all these things and slow down a little bit, when we stop doing all these things we really didn't need to do anyways, that's when we're left to our own devices. And that's when we start to confuse ourselves and get overwhelmed, not because there's anything bad about the place that we're in, but just because we're not used to it. And I think that's in some ways what's happening here, where things are slowing down, which is a good thing. And we don't have to try so hard to make things happen as much anymore. But now it feels weird to kind of like stop doing some of these things that we were doing, and we're kind of confusing ourselves and making worst case scenarios in our mind and like trying to get out of it, especially because when things are slow, this is the last thing, this last sentence, I like it. There's with so little real outlet, right? Because we haven't fully gotten to where we want to go yet either. And sometimes when we haven't gotten to where we want to go yet either in life, like to where we want to be, we don't have that outlet yet. It also gets hard to handle as well. Okay. So there's definitely something around that of like still feeling like we're not where we want to be and having no outlet and to really express ourselves, and that feeling a little crazy and hard for us to make sense of, even though it's ultimately like a good thing that you can enjoy and that can be enjoyable and that maybe you have enjoyed it another time, you know? Because I'm sure there have been times in your life where things have been slow when you've liked it. Why don't you like it now? Why are some slow times good and other slow times bad? It's all kind of relative. I think there's some thoughts there. And maybe another thought too, and I talked about this at that full moon and the new moon in Taurus a few months ago as well. But it's the fact, like, time isn't really being slow. It's just that we're doing less, right? And now is the whole thing, because we're honoring our emotions and our passions and not doing what we think we should do as a responsible thing to do. We're doing less because we're not doing all that other crap we didn't want to do in the first place. And because we're doing less, we feel like we have more time. And time is taking forever because we have so much more time now that we didn't have before, and things are so slow. And it's like, really, really, you're just doing less than what you were doing. It's not that time is going slow, just you were doing less than what you're doing. So now you have more free time, which feels slow and it's not. So I don't know if this is helping you all, but I'm getting a sense that like the speed of time is a matter of perspective. And it's not that things are actually moving slow. It's that we're doing less than we were doing before. And we need to stop seeing it as a bad thing and see it as a good thing. But when we start to slow down and allow ourselves to slow down and start to see it as a good thing, it feels weird at first. It feels weird at first because we don't have all these other things we used to have to distract us, that kind of throws us back into these, old thoughts that we're gonna, or not, if not old thoughts, just in this weird place that we don't have an outlet for, that's kind of hard to handle, Like, maybe to give you a metaphor, I just got the image of like taking kids today camping. Like that's how I feel like maybe we're feeling right now, is like we're used to being in the hustle and bustle of like the world where we always have to be busy and we have things to do and we have people to call and we've got the cell phone on and the TV and all the stuff we can do. And then all of a sudden now we're camping in the woods. You've taken the kids who love the iPads nowadays and you put them in the woods camping and they're all just sitting around like, I'm bored. What are we doing in the woods? Where's my cell phone? I don't get any cell phone service here. Give me the iPad, like pitching a fit. Like, what are we supposed to do here now? And what we're supposed to do is we got to start having fun at the campsite. We got to start making the tent. We got to start cooking up some marshmallows, we got to start going to the creek nearby, So I think that is the metaphor. That's how a lot of us feel, is like we're in a different place that's supposed to be better, in nature, more calm and easy, but we're without the things we had before and it feels weird. And we need to learn how to enjoy where we are, instead of fight against it. All right, let's look at 14, Taurus 14. It says, caught inside a strange predicament. You no longer belong to worlds you always dreamed into before, and you only have a light connection with the worlds calling you forward from here. Caught in a time warp, being neither this nor that. It is stark and merciless dilemma. Your heart is divided between memories and vision, sentiment and knowledge. Inside this quandary, something else is going on. You are distracted from all solid allegiances in order to overhaul your way of being, even while you remain stubbornly adamant and resistant. You get around your own paranoid system by subtle and subliminal means, eroding the ego base and bringing yourself through a humiliating stage. Make yourself ready for deeper challenges ahead by stripping away your self-importance. You who have leaned back hard on self-importance for your very identity and who now must let go despite not wanting to at all. I like the thoughts here about letting go. I like the thought here about humbling yourself, being maybe part of the advice when we're in a situation that maybe feels slower than we might like, or not going the way we might want. It's like you just have to let go. Or like if we're in the woods and we don't have the things we would normally have because we're camping, it's like you need to let go of the technology. You need to let go of all of that. And I like the idea of letting go of your self-importance and to realize that there are other greater things going on in the world. Not that we're not all important. I mean, we all are important. We can all do things, but that, there is something greater out there at work. And that's one of the things that I like about astrology. And that's one thing I like to think about when I look up at the stars at night. I was talking to someone a few months ago about the stars. It was someone I just met. I told him that I did astrology. And this person was like, oh, I don't really like to look up at the stars. And I was like, why? And they were like, oh, because it makes me feel small. Like I look up at the stars and I just feel like I'm so small and unimportant. And I looked at that person. I said, well, that's funny. I said, because I'm the opposite. I look up at the stars and I feel like I'm a part of something greater, and it makes me feel better. I don't feel small. I feel like I'm a part of something else. And so it was kind of like a funny conversation how two people can come at something from totally different perspectives. But I feel like there's some of that's going on. It's like there's more. We need to let go of how we think life should be and how we think life should be for us, because sometimes it's okay for life to be one way for other people, but not for us. And to allow what's really meant to be and what's really meant to happen, because maybe some of you have some ideas that life is only supposed to feel a certain way or be a certain pace or all of that. And maybe that's what's stopping you from allowing you to be who you're meant to be, and there's a need to kind of humble yourself in the process, right? And to realize that we don't always have all the answers, and that sometimes when we think we're doing the right thing, we're not, especially with the Mercury retrograde, and that's okay. That doesn't mean we're, bad people. Or anything. Just means that maybe there's some other things in control, or some other things about life that are going on that we don't understand. And that's okay. We don't have to understand everything. That's also what I like about life. I like that there's some mystery to life sometimes. Okay. Well, that's all I'm going to say. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull your card. We've got the Ace of Wands upright. What do we have at the bottom of the deck? The bottom of the deck, we've got the Empress upright as well, which is interesting. Because both of these are about like new beginnings, births of some sort. So it definitely indicates to me there's a new beginning on the horizon. This Ace of Wands to me feels very Mars, with the Mars opposite Uranus. I think there's a lot of passion that we have for the new beginning. Ace, because the ace is, of course, the beginning of the suit. The Empress, because she's pregnant in it, So there's a new beginning on the horizon. We're very passionate about this new beginning, but we've got the Empress. And it's funny because the Empress to me correlates to Taurus, which is where the full moon is. She's pregnant in this card, and the baby's not been born yet, so I think I'm getting a sense here that we're very excited about the new things that are yet to come in our lives and what's possible for our lives, because we're on the cusp of a new beginning, but it's not quite here yet. And, that makes us maybe a little anxious and nervous and not feel like we have an outlet for some of our passions. Like maybe that's another metaphor of like the baby's not like you're maybe a metaphor is, you or someone you love is pregnant. You're so excited about the baby being here, but the baby's not here yet. The baby hasn't been born yet. And it's like those moments in between where you're like, I know my life is about to change, and I know the baby's about to be born, but it's not here yet. And I'm so excited, but I'm nervous, and it's so slow, or is it fast, or what's happening? So it's like one of those weird times. That is going on. And I think maybe there's a need to balance some of your passion with, balance your passion with patience, or to temper some of your passion so that you can finish kind of, nurturing this new experience in order to bring it together better. Yeah, and to find ways to enjoy with the Ace of Wands, the process in the moment. So I think that's what I'm going to say there. Yeah, we're on the cusp of a new beginning. It's right around the corner. We can feel it. We're excited, but it's not here yet. Making you feel like there's no outlet. You got to find a way to either temper your passions, balance your passions, or find other ways to express your passions that aren't going to interfere with what needs to happen. As well, so that you can more fully kind of finish working out the details and to continue with the metaphor of like the baby about to be born, right? When you've got a baby that's about to be born and you're excited and the baby's not born yet, and of course there's all these emotions. Maybe it's frustration because it's been a long process, or maybe there's anxiety. What do? You don't necessarily you can't necessarily do the new things because the baby's not here yet, but you work with what you currently have going on to make that better, to make sure the baby's room is set up, to make sure that you've got the diapers or the baby food or whatever it is that you're going to need, or your bag packed for the hospital. It's like you're doing some things. Maybe they're not the new exciting things that you want to do, but you're doing some things there, and you're making plans with relationships, right? Because that's a big thing about this film. You're making plans with relationships. Well, who's going to take who to the hospital? Who's going to go visit me at the hospital? Who's going to come up here? Right? And you're making plans about money. Who's going to pay for the hospital bill? When are we going to get this for the baby? You're making plans about that. So I think that's another way that I see the energy. So close to new beginnings, not quite here yet, even though we can feel it. leaving us in a weird space without any outlet. We got to learn to temper our passions, to balance it, or to channel them in more helpful ways. And the more helpful ways is not to go ahead and force the baby to be born yet. The more helpful ways is to work with where you currently are to make sure that that's all set and that you have all the needs and the relationships and money are in the right place so that when the new thing does happen, it happens more smoothly and it all comes together in a better way. Okay, so I think that's what I'm going to say there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful for you. I wish you all the best. And I will talk to you in the next video 2 weeks from now at that new moon in the sign of Scorpio.